He's gonna flash in, and he steals the Baron!
One of the quickest games in competitive history.
How did that connect my engine? Shockwave onto 4! Double kill for him on the Jinx! That was disgusting! Karmine Corp have done it as EU Masters Champions!
Welcome to Berlin, Germany, home of the European League of Legends for the Amazon EU Masters semi-finals. This week, we'll get to meet the 2021 Summer Champion, and I'm very happy to be the host for this last week. I'm Laure, joined by Trouble and Ox. I'm super happy to see you guys. How are you doing?
Good, good. It's exciting.
Yeah, the rivalry is back. NLC versus LFL. Let's get it.
Still have a team left.
Yes, until tomorrow at least.
One team left, I have two, but we'll talk about that later because
Spain had 3.
teams were here in the beginning, but now 4 have left fighting for the IRL supremacy. So let's take a quick look on how we got there because as you said, Spain, honestly, pain after this quarterfinal.
Spain without the S.
Made it, guys.
Yeah.
Unexpected, I feel.
That was Spain without the S, honestly. Superliga again, coming in, fired up, all ready to go. There was so much promise behind all 3 teams. They looked really good at groups. They all slotted into the quarterfinals, all 3 of them. All 3 wiped off the map in a pretty convincing fashion.
Oh, so was that the biggest surprise here for you in these quarterfinals? Very one-sided games, though.
Yeah, I feel, honestly, I expected more from Movistar, and I feel like Fnatic Rising really stepped up to knock out Movistar, who I think even when you look at the group stages, they look like a solid lineup, but again, the Superliga teams just couldn't bring it when it came down to it in the quarterfinals.
Well, we can take a look at the 4 teams we have left, because starting with Fnatic Rising, the last hope, as you said, for the NLC. How strong did they look in the quarterfinals, and how strong do they look right now?
I think the NLC, especially after spring 2021, looked extremely promising with BTXL taking Karmine Corp all the way to the finals. And then we've got Fnatic Rising, where they haven't necessarily been able to establish themselves as a very strong team in European Masters in ever. So coming into this European Masters as the 2nd seed again from the NOC and advancing all the way to the semifinals, for me specifically, was a surprise. I've been seeing this team for 2 years now, and they have not looked as strong as they are looking right now, especially with the addition of Dayer in the mid lane.
Yeah, and they're gonna have a big task tomorrow, but as for now, how strong does the team look, Ox?
I think they've just grown massively since the NLC. I think we saw the roster shop that Dayo coming in the mid lane, and initially when we saw him, the first game he was on Seraphine, and you just see how the trust has developed, and he's now a more active role for the team.
And how about Big? Because for me, they showed off Big, especially in the quarterfinals, but for me, it was more of a team diff rather than Big looking good.
I feel like they're the fastest moving macro team in the early game. They're so scary because wherever you look on the map, there are plays constantly happening and they don't seem to be able to lose in any lane. So if there's a multi-threat team that people should keep their eyes on, that should definitely be Big.
Now what about the Spring Champions, Ox? Because they had a difficult group. We didn't see much from them after group, but here in the quarterfinals, they looked unbeatable against Yurkam.
Yeah, and the thing is, this was the team who took them really far in Spring, and everyone thought was, you know, the 2nd strongest team at the tournament, but K-Corp absolutely annihilated them. Despite some early proactive play from UCAM, it just felt like in the team fights, K-Corp were on top.
And now, last team we have, Misfit Premier. To me, maybe coming up as biased, but it feels like they are the strongest team right now in this Summer EU Masters.
Oh, don't worry. I'm Zlatan's biggest fan, girl, so I'm going to side with you. I feel like their mid-jungle duo looks so scary. They seem unbeatable. Zlatan is possibly the most ballsy jungler I have seen in both Spring and Summer right now, and I just cannot wait to see them pair up, possibly him pair up against Akabane.
Well, let's take a look at the matchup we're going to have today, K-Corp versus Big. I wanted to take a look at how the teams got there, especially K-Corp first. Big first, I'm sorry. 5-1 here in the EU Masters. Are they as convincing as we were hoping? Because to me, reaching semifinals was the minimum for this team.
Absolutely. I would say reaching finals is the absolute minimum for this team. We saw their coach speak as well about it. They're like, it's definitely going to be a team that already holds a trophy that's going to take it this year. And Big already hold the trophy underneath their belt. I felt like going into the regular season of the Prime League, they were a little bit lukewarm. They weren't gelled together properly. They didn't know exactly how they wanted to play. Other teams had just come into the league league, that were doing much better, that were much faster. Once they went into the playoffs, they absolutely demolished anyone, went into the finals against Penta, 3-0'd them into a very decisive fashion. They looked exactly as strong in the group stage, and I feel like in the quarterfinals, they showed a complete different beast. And if that's not their final form, I'm really scared.
Yeah, I feel like as a team, they're so aggressive, they set such a fast pace, particularly when we look at that mid-jungle. Rika and Akabane have been absolutely monstrous, but it feels like it's a full package for the team. I feel like there's positive things you can say about each member. Keduii, in particular, stepped up massively in the quarterfinal match, bringing out the Jhin, which we haven't seen too much, and being a massive dominant force.
Yeah, Keduii being the player you expect to see show up by the end of the games for Big. They're gonna have a big task here today against K-Corp, who have similar strength. And talking about K-Corp, they are looking to get their second back-to-back EU Masters finals. But can they do it, and do they look better than they were in spring?
That's a big question, because they came in super hyped in spring, and then this summer, they didn't have as clean a run through the LFL, right? They started to drop some games, and then in the finals, getting pretty much annihilated by Misfits Premier, but I feel like we've seen them transition to a more topside focus. They obviously have Cabochard instead of Adam, and they've been playing around him heavily, and I think they've developed a lot since they've been at the EU Masters, and they are looking really formidable.
What kind of conclusions can we take on the Cabochard renaissance, I want to say, the redemption arc for him with K-Corp trouble?
I feel my colleague right here said back on backstage that he's an upgrade from Adam coming in, and I'm sort of siding with it on the side of Cabochard is coming in with the experience, he's coming in with a very wide champion pool, and I feel like a lot of the pressure K-Corp is allowed to absorb is because of Cabochard. He's been heavily hit, he's been heavily ganked, and this man can turn a 2v1 against them. But I feel like for me, the biggest question mark was SAKEN the entire season. I felt like this guy was playing tanks, mages, assassins, textbook. He knew exactly what he had to do with every separate role, and I feel he's coming back in form, and this is why K-Corp is again looking very scary.
I think his current form has just elevated the team, because even in the games that look close, down to the wire, it can just be SAKEN difference. He can literally single-handedly carry these games, and his play was just absolutely stellar. You're getting to see it on screen. He has been an absolute monster, and for sure, even with Shaik there, the best mid laner in this tournament.
I think it's what I like the most about this K-Corp lineup is that you can have carry potential on every lane and every side of the map. We see how they match up against Big, of course, today. But before we take a deeper look on this matchup, I want to talk about the other side of the bracket we're going to have tomorrow. Misfits Premier versus Fnatic Rising. And I want to bring back the rivalry we had in spring, because this is going to be LFC versus LFL. And also, maybe time for revenge for Misfits Premier as they got knocked out by BTXL in spring. Can they do
the bad news? Shall I bring the bad news?
You can be the bearer of bad news.
I'm going to be the bearer of bad news. I feel like the mid-jungle duo from Misfits Premier is absolutely the strongest I've seen the entire year, including spring. I feel seaz and Zlatan can run everyone over. It feels like seaz has this champion pool that really does complement Zlatan. If we also look at it, it's full of globals. He has the Ryze, he has the Twisted Fate, he's got there's one more. Hit me with it. The Galio.
Roaming chance, basically.
Ryze, Twisted Fate, Galio, and all these complement Zlatan so well, because Zlatan is playing this more ballsy, in-your-face style. And when you have these globals to back you up, it's just so much easier to play a more aggressive type in the jungle.
So we have the globals on what side? What can Fnatic bring to the table on the other side, Ox?
I think the big thing for me when we look at Deo is often he leans on these heavy skirmishing champions, things like the Set, like the Renekton, and the Sylas. And it means if you do end up getting, you know, a scenario where you're trying to contest mid-priority, mid-control, these champs are really effective at just getting into the close-range fights, backing up your jungler, you're able to move, you're able to hold your own. And I think Deo has been doing that really effectively. The team have played to set him up, and then he has returned that in spades.
I think the most important thing to highlight right here is that Deo came in to replace Febiven, a world-class mid laner at this point with so much experience. Deo is just a rookie, and we heard in the interview with Pride said it was Deo that decided to play Sylas blind twice in a row, and it was Fnatic deciding to put all of their eggs in his basket, and he carried.
See, that's the kind of confidence we'll be looking to see tomorrow in the matchup. But for now, we have another semifinals on our hands. We said K-Corp versus Big. It's going to be interesting because they're the spring champions, but also when you look at these players' perspective, especially in the jungle, this is going to be Akabane versus his former team here, and I really like this matchup.
Yeah, and I think for me, the jungle matchup's super hyped, but I also want to talk about the supports and bring them in, because I think particularly for K-Corp, they can't just beat Akabane one-on-one, right? I think Cinkrof has been phenomenal, but I think Akabane's just been on another level. The critical thing is Targamas and him being freed from bot lane to pair up with his jungler so they can combat Akabane and hold him back in the jungle.
I really like how he mentions Targamas right here, because I don't believe it's Akabane versus Cinkrof. I think it's Akabane versus Targamas, because the real jungler for K-Corp is Targamas. At this point, it reminds me a little bit of the Damwon 2020 World Finals, where if a lane was in trouble, Beryl, the support, would go over and try to fix the lane. So if SAKEN is in trouble, Targamas will roam mid, free him from the lane. If Cabo is in trouble, Targamas will roam mid, so then SAKEN can roam top to help Cabochard. And Cinkrof takes more of a backline approach, where he will farm and he will be a monster when he has his items ready to go. But the big question mark here is that their kill participations between Akabane and Cinkrof speak for themselves. I feel like Akabane has been the alpha to omega for Big, because he's the one creating the opportunities, he's the one creating the ganks, he's the one playing aggressive, and then the team wants to play around him.
Yeah, but in a sense, when you think about K-Corp, they are able to do such things because they have such strong laners, enabling just Cinkrof to sit back and chill and do whatever he can in the early game. How can Big prevent them from doing that today?
Win mid. Win mid. You win mid, you win the map. If you get Rika ahead, he can spread his advantage everywhere. And the critical thing is if you shut down SAKEN, it's that simple. If SAKEN's able to have a good laning phase, I think it's over. But on the other side, if Rika is able to have a really successful laning phase, that's where you can find that power. And he's been so instrumental in Big's victories.
Are you saying ban LeBlanc?
Yeah, that's probably, that's solid. That's a solid.
I thought that's what you were saying underneath all of that. Yeah,
it's a good call. Good call.
Yeah, I agree with him. Ban LeBlanc.
Other chips. But before we jump onto the last part of this pre-show, I caught up earlier with Akabane ahead of his big game, so let's check out what he had to say. Akabane, thank you so much for joining me today ahead of your game. I gotta say, I appreciate the flag you're wearing right now. I looked up Twitter before going to this interview, and I saw some banter between you and Cinkrof. You were looking at some stats, and you said jungle diff. Can you elaborate on that based on the stat that you saw and the matchup you have against Cinkrof today?
Yeah, I have 2 times KDA, feels good, but I think Cinkrof is a good player. I can't wait to face him. He's like, I think, the best jungler in ERL. But yeah, he played against better player than me, so it's fake data, you know. But it still feels nice to have 2 times KDA. Yeah. And today I will smash him.
Oh, you will smash him. Taking the mental edge, obviously, and being confident. But what makes you confident that you will smash him? Because obviously you're very different styles of junglers. What makes you ahead?
I think I can carry every game, and he doesn't carry. He plays for his teammates, but he's good at doing that. But today, I will take every camp, and he's gonna be 3 levels behind me. Oh.
Jungle-less Cinkrof. We'll see about that, because I like the strong words before this phasing. And I think it's interesting because you were the K-Corp jungler before it was cool, actually, Akabane. So how does it make you feel to face your former team today? Because you started with them when they were Camille Corp last year.
Yeah, it's really personal today. I know the CEO of K-Corp, the coaching staff as well. They were talking to me before the games, and they tried to pressure me, but it doesn't work against me. But yeah, it feels good to play against them. The fan as well, like on every stream, they are still here to support me. But I'm sorry for them today. It's not coming home.
Oh, I really hope you can bring the rivalry on the Rift today, because everything sounds amazing right now. I'm so hyped that you guys are excited about this matchup, because honestly, when you look at Big, they look like the best team to go against K-Corp, because they're a very team-oriented, team fight composition. So how do you think you can take them down when you look at your strength and how K-Corp has been playing so far?
I think they have really good solo laners and bot lane as well. Like, they have strong laners, but I think today the better team play will win the BO5. If we have better team play than them, then we will win easily. And I think in team fight as well, like who's gonna fight better is probably gonna win the game. Well, and jungle GIF as well.
I was about to say, and jungle diff as well, because you seem to have the mental edge here. But Akabane, thank you so much for the interview, and I wish you the best of luck against K-Corp today.
Thank you. See you guys.
Merci. À bientôt.
Merci. Bientôt.
Some very strong words coming from Akabane.
Jungle diff.
Jungle diff. I mean, can we disagree with him, honestly, looking at the stats from the two junglers?
I think that's the thing, is when you think about Cinkrof compared to Akabane, I think Akabane wins, right? But we're not comparing those two. Targamas has been the second jungler for K-Corp, and you look at the numbers, it's definitely favored towards the side of big, but you have to factor in the support here. That's the critical member for K-Corp.
And I feel these stats also show the story for Akabane and how he likes to play through the early game. You see a lot of Rift Heralds, which will give him all that goal difference. You see a lot of kills going his way, a lot of pressure in the early game. He'll enter enemy territory when he has the priority through his lanes, and 72% kill participation versus only 58. I was looking through the stats, and Cinkrof has the third lowest kill participation of the entire tournament, including groups. So yeah, I agree. I feel like Cinkrof will need the help of Targamas if they want to shut Akabane down.
What was interesting during the interview is that he said Cinkrof is not touching a single game today, not even from his jungle. But how can you really do this when you have perma pushing lane and prior on lanes from K-Corp? Because that's the strength.
This is a difficult thing, is that I feel like any time you look to invade against Cinkrof, you'll have the laners collapsing. You'll have Targamas there. I remember the Pike game we had in the quarterfinals. He just left lane and he just hovered in the jungle for like minutes at a time. He just was completely uninterested. And xMatty's fine with that. He's fine just staying bot by himself. But it means these strong solo laners that even Akabane hit on are just set up for success. And that's the thing. If you put Cinkrof behind, I'm not sure K-Corp are that bothered, right? As long as Cabochard's strong, as long as SAKEN's strong, they're golden.
Yeah, and they have the right champions to do so, I mean, so far in draft. Let's take a look at what they've been playing, because we have what we called the draft daddies.
Oh my God. That was I just want to say that was his idea.
Well, that's a great idea.
Yeah, I'm not sure. We just came up with draft daddies because he just sounded good. But I think the big thing for me is when you look at these teams, for K-Corp, it very much is leaning into the team fighting. And their execution there is honestly just flawless. I think the big thing is often you see teams who are very good at team fighting, they'll group together and clump up as a ball. But K-Corp aren't like that. They split the team fight into a wider sort of area, and it's about these little individual skirmishes. So it's about Cabochard 1v2 on your backline. It's about xMatty being untouchable as their backline, and SAKEN just doing SAKEN things.
What about big on the other side?
Yes.
Good early games, but
seeing this draft, I'm like, I favor big because this is how they want to play. To me, K-Corp right here will have to forfeit a little bit of their early game with their failures down bow, with the Azir in the mid lane, hashtag we scale, see you at 40 guys. But then I'm looking on the other side for big, and I'm seeing Camille, I'm seeing Lee Sin, I'm seeing Twisted Fate, I'm seeing playmaking right from the get-go. And I feel like what big has been really good at doing so far is choking their opponent teams super early into the game, not giving them a slight chance to come back, hitting these Rift Heralds early, opening up lanes, choking you through vision control, and then fighting you in the small skirmishes where you can't reply to because you're still farming, trying to catch up.
yeah, we have some very exploitable weaknesses, I feel, on the side of K-Corp, but it looks to be like the most competitive series we can have so far at the EU Masters, a very big challenge for K-Corp. What are the predictions here? What do you think?
For me, I'm going 3-2 K-Corp.
Okay.
I feel like as much as Big's explosive early game has favored them heavily, I think the Targamas factor is what will help K-Corp get to those team fights, and I think they are a hard team to match there.
I'll go for 3-1 big because I feel like they are the better team. They move faster, and if they can manage to choke down K-Corp in the very early, K-Corp will never get the team fighting that they want to. So I think it's going to be decisive. I don't think we're going to get a best of 5 here.
We'll see how decisive is the early game, but the journey continues today at the EU Masters, and tonight we'll have our first finalist. So let's send it over to casters for game 1.
Oh, hello. Oh, is that us? Hello. Hey. Hi. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Yeah, thank you so much. We are jumping into that first game of this semi-final, and I'm pretty excited about this, Foxy. Desk, you did a beautiful job of setting the stakes for this. It is a big deal. I want to reiterate, it is a big deal. I sound like that guy from the children's... Never mind, I watch too much kids' YouTube with my son. But essentially, it is the Dark Region versus the LFL. LFL, again, having an absolute barnstormer of a European Masters right now. They have got the chance for an all-LFL finals. They've completely replicated their success from spring, and Big are kind of doing the Dark Region proud by themselves, and there is obviously a great chance for them to come in and swoop. And as Trouble said, Foxdrop, she believes they're the better team here.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy actually, where you've got K-Core in EU Masters and they're not the overwhelming favorites. Like, that just to me is insane. When you flip back to spring, when they're just so dominant and they won it all, when it really wasn't that difficult for them, you never really had any doubts they were all going to make it happen. I think this is probably the biggest challenge they've ever had in EU Masters. Like, generally, since they've been in EU Masters, this would be the toughest team for them to play against. And I think this is going to be an absolute banger of a series.
Mate, I think realistically, even if it's a 3-0, we're looking at a banger series here. And both of these teams have what it takes, I think, to really go the distance. You are looking at, if these guys were on either side of the bracket, you might have even been looking at a final with these two teams stacking up against each other. And I genuinely think Big are in really good form right now. K-Corp, their name speaks for themselves. And I think what's really interesting about these current set of semi-finalists that we've got is that as we head into draft, we have got 3 previous winners. There is a 75% chance that we are going to have another winner who was won previously, and K-Corp have the chance to do something that it would be very difficult to replicate and go back-to-back spring and summer European Masters champions, which would be unprecedented and would firmly cement as both themselves and the LFL as the best regional team in Europe.
Yeah, it's hard enough to qualify to back-to-back EU Masters.
Yeah, exactly.
I've gone very yellow here. It's whatever. I'm a bit ill. Sorry, guys. Oh, I'm coming back now. Yeah, I'm feeling better. We've got the bans going through right here. A lot of solo lane focus right now. I think the Dest mentioned it as well. The Blanc is a really solid ban here. We saw SAKEN just. That was just disgusting what he did in the quarters with that champion. So yeah, absolutely no surprise to see that one taken away. It's 4 total solo lane bans right here. So we'll see, like, Lee Sin could be a focus in the draft for, you know, as a flex for KC and just as a really strong power pick for Akabane as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of shared jungle pool for all junglers right now. With the Xin Zhao gone, I would expect that Viego and Lee Sin to be heavily prioritized for both of these guys, although we know that Trundle can come out. That is an interesting pick, though. That is something that has been cropping up as a first pick on both blue side, but also an R1 pick too, and it is the Ryze for SAKEN here that gets locked in.
Ryze very strong on this patch. Really good blind pick as well, because you can match him into solo lanes, like when you get into outside lane phase, he does really well against split pushers, but also in team fights and skirmishing and stuff like that. He's got it all really, so very good solo pick. First pick here, blind pick. Interesting enough, despite how meta Ryze is right now, neither Rika nor SAKEN have actually played him in the tournament so far. I have no doubt that they can play him. It's Ryze after all, but just interesting tidbit there. Is going to be answered with the Camille and the Lee Sin. Like I mentioned, you know, that Lee Sin, not only a takeaway from Cinkrof, but also from Cabochard, who's been really good on that in the group stage, and Melonik playing his favorite champion in that Camille.
Yeah, he's had that 3 performances in the European Masters with that so far. Gives you a very strong jungle top as well, with a strong side top to play through if you want to. Lots of split pushing pressure. Immediately, as we said, though, it is going to be the Viego for Cinkrof, and we're going to see a Gangplank early on. Very heavy commit to solo lane priority, as was mentioned on the desk. Karmine Corp keen to lock in solo lanes that they feel comfortable on.
Cabochard had a disgusting Gangplank game in his previous series. It was... in the draft, he was focused so hard. They banned away so many of his champions. He last picked it as kind of like something he hadn't played yet in EU Masters, and just like, yeah, sure, I'll play the Galio. And it was vile, absolutely disgusting. He was like 2v1ing whenever the jungler came to gank. Grim stuff. No surprise really to see him pick that one up. And as you say, a lot of focus on those solo lanes. They're going to be matched though on the side for Big. They've gone for that Galio. Rika loves to play that. I think it makes a lot of sense as well when you've got Ryze, who's got like somewhat of like, he's able to move around with that ulti, and also with Gangplank, who can influence plays outside of his lane with his ult as well. You can jump in with the Galio and make that happen.
Yeah, Rika's got a little bit of a different style when it comes to that mid lane to SAKEN. You look at the difference in their champion pool through this European Masters. Rika has got more map-orientated, kind of like influence the side lanes as much as possible, and that is where we're going to see the Galio coming through. And now with both teams heavily locking in their solo laners on the top side of the map, we will now start to see some focus towards that bot side. With Thresh and Leona, I would not be surprised to see multiple support bans coming through here.
And I want to see what they do about Keduii, what KC decides to do about Keduii, because as Ades mentioned, Keduii has been so good. His quarterfinal matchup was absolutely sublime, legit. He played so well, and a lot of that was on the back of his Tristana. Such a good pick for Keduii. He loves playing it. It's great in the meta. We'll see what he decides to do right here, because there has not been a lot of bot focus. It's going to be the Varus instead. So not going to get that hyper carry from Keduii. Instead going to most likely be that Lethality Varus who stands back and throws stuff out from the backline.
Yeah, there isn't really much hard engage for Karmine Corp except for a Ryze portal right now. They banned the Ezreal as well, limiting one of the other super long range AD carries. And so maybe Big taking that stance that, well, let's try to outrange. Let's use the Varus to outrange and try and make it as difficult for them to find engages as possible, because right now there isn't really a solid way to find an engage coming through. Speaking of, though, we have seen some filthy Alistar in this tournament thus far. If Targamas wants to be roam heavy and look for ganks, it might be on him here to have the influence in this game.
Targamas is such a good... I think Georgia mentioned it, right? Trouble said that the real jungler isn't Cinkrof, it's Targamas. And that's just perfect. It's just the perfect way to describe KC with the way that he plays. He loves these champions that are playmakers that can run around, especially the ones that are a bit tankier, that can sit on the front line. Someone like Alistar, for example, would be just very much in his wheelhouse. And as you say, you've got some more engage right there. You're lacking a little bit, but whenever you've got a Gangplank on your team, you can throw that down. Yeah, it's easy for you to like run forward and chase after the team that's being slowed down. Especially when there's someone like, you know, like a Varus on the enemy team. If you're trying to catch him, it's not that difficult. He's a little bit slow. Going to be answered with the Rell, so a good kind of counter engage option as well. A lot of team fighting from both these teams. Could be very scrappy.
Yeah, and it's very interesting to see kind of how Big are probably looking to approach this. Like I think they're realistically going to be saying, Keduii, sit there, spam arrows, and if the engage comes through, we have the tools to fight. We have the Galio, we have the Rell, we can disengage, we can create space for you. And that's likely, I guess that's where Big are looking for, and they always have that split push option. You know, eventually, no matter how good Gangplank is, you're probably going to start to struggle versus a Camille as the game progresses. So especially an Ignite TP Camille who's going all in on those summoner spell choices. Whereas, as you said, Karmine Corp, I think it's a little bit more simple. Like they just have a 5v5, right? Like it's just an AoE 5v5. They want to get into the fight, as you correctly mentioned, either with the engage through Targamas or through Gangplank, and they just want to throw the kitchen sink at them, basically.
Exactly. I love calling these comps dogpile comps, where you just jump in, everyone goes in, it's just a bundle, and then you hopefully win the team fight. I think there's a little bit more nuance, as you're mentioning, to Big's comp, and I think Keduii's been given more of like I don't want to say a facilitator role, but it's like everyone else wants to jump forward. You know, Camille, Galio, Lee Sin, Rell, they're all going to be jumping forward, but then Keduii can just stay back on that Varus and just throw out those arrows, so he's safe. He doesn't have to get himself in there, which is a weakness of someone like Varus, why you often see him paired with a champion like Thresh, because if he is asked to put in the deeps in the team fights, he makes himself a little bit vulnerable. Probably won't be finding himself in that situation. Here we go, it's game one. KC and Big, two of the most impressive teams we've seen here, E-Masters Summer 2021. Two former champions as well of E-Masters. KC won it in spring, looking for their back-to-back. First time it would ever have been done. But of course, you've got to get through Big here in the semis. No easy task.
I think this is one of the closest matchups you're going to see this European Masters all round. I think these two teams are incredible, and they're representing regions that, you know, LFL clearly have had an absolute barnstormer year, as we mentioned. It has been the year of France, if you've been a European Regional League fan, have been watching European Masters. And for the Dark region, for the Prime League, it has been rough. You haven't had the best of performances over the last few years even, and now is your chance with Big to potentially make that mark once more. But again, Karmine Corp, the current defending champions, they are probably your toughest opposition, and if you get through to finals, you'll be feeling pretty happy about it.
But then he might be staring down Misfits in the finals if they beat Fnatic in the other semis. So it's like, yeah, I mean, you just gotta go through the French War at this point. You know, neither of these teams, neither KC nor Misfits, are going to be easy opposition. But then, if you want to win the Masters, you have to be pretty good. So no complaining about playing versus strong opponents.
Exactly. You've got to beat everyone to be the best in Europe, and Karmine Corp. When it comes to current European standings, I know they lost in the LFL finals, but most people considered that a bit of an upset. They are one of the teams that are considered the best in Europe right now with that current European Masters title. I'm excited. Both of these teams are teams that like to get ahead in the early game. Both the guys mentioned, or the whole desk mentioned, that the early game macro for these teams is very strong. That's why they often end up coming out ahead in the early game. We'll have to see how that's facilitated. Akabane on Lee Sin generally tends to have a little bit more impact, can have a little bit more influence earlier than the Viego can. We'll have to see how he can, if he can live up to his words in the interview, Foxdrop, and really put the pressure on Cinkrof.
Those were some spicy words, weren't they? He really wasn't holding back. And he said as well, it's a little bit personal for him, because he was KC's OG jungler. The first jungler that they had before Cinkrof came in. So for him, yeah, of course he wants to put KC in the dirt. And he had some very choice words for Cinkrof specifically about how he plays very passive. Here comes Cinkrof with the invade. Akabane is waiting for him.
Doesn't have the priority though, so it doesn't look like he wants to commit too hard. And actually, Cinkrof are going to jump in. I mean, Akabane's going for it right now. He's losing out on this one. SAKEN over the wall, flashes in. He wants to go for the fight. But Akabane will back off, get under tower with his own flash. That's what priority will get you though. And Cinkrof gets away with it.
Straight up, that's it. That's a power mid pro right there. Nothing's ever jungle diff anymore. It's always lane diff. Remember that every single time. This is the problem, right? Ryze having that push in early, able to then make that roam and to punish Akabane with Cinkrof. Akabane making the smart decision to go for the bot side of the map here, not to try and contest his red buff, which is now gone. But that is advantage KC in the jungle war right here. But of course, SAKEN used his flash. That's a big thing to take away from that one. The Ryze and no flash with the Galio, with the Lee Sin to set up. Could be very vulnerable as we move on in this game.
Yeah, we'll keep our eyes on that mid lane. I would imagine that Akabane is going to want to look to exploit that. You also have a good set of kill pressure top with you, especially post level 6 for Melonik. Easy ways to lock down that Gangplank and take him down. There is lots of kill threat now for Akabane to try and capitalize on. And as we expect from the current meta, we have the support roams coming through very early on here. You can see Targamas essentially shadowing Cinkrof on that blue side jungle. And looks like seaz just doing the rounds, walking through and scouting up some vision, putting down some wards.
We might get a little bit of a collapse on Melonik. Remember, no flash, TP ignite, his wave is pushing in. Akabane also no flash.
Yeah, Akabane is here though. He will catch up Targamas. Melonik, does he have that hook shot available? Yes, he does. Oh my gosh, that was a little ballsy, my man. Melonik, I am not sure what he was thinking. First blood over to Cinkrof. Rika's head up towards the engage. Akabane finds a kill back onto Targamas. It's a double kill right now for Big as a teleport comes through from SAKEN. Akabane tries to get towards the tower, but he'll drop as SAKEN picks up the kill. Another teleport coming through for Melonik. Once this fight does not have level 6, but the hook shot is available when he needs it. He's just going to chase down SAKEN for the time being. Flash forward, the taunt lands. Rika's going for it. One basic attack lands it. This is an absolute mess right now. But Berlin International Gaming go toe-to-toe with KC on the top side of the map.
What on earth was that? That was crazy. Absolute madness from the start of this. We were looking forward to this series. I wasn't expecting something like this to happen so early on, but I love it. The big difference in this play. Okay, right. Let me sit up for this. So, the big diffy here, Targamas is here, whereas seaz is still bot side. So you've already got a player difference in this one. Advantage KC. Melonik, if you just hookshot it out there, you'd be chilling. But I think maybe he saw an opportunity to try and catch someone in the tower. A bit greedy, but either way, respect the attempt. And then it's just TP after TP after TP. SAKEN being the first one in, followed by Melonik, who's respawned, which will follow by Cabo, who's also respawned. But again, all of this fight was advantage KC because they had Targamas up here. And as you can see on the minimap though, they were able to zone Matty away from that bot tower. Ooh,
I'll be a little careful though. Cinkrof is here. We don't have that Dragon's Rage kick. We actually have the ultimate coming back in. That will be a knockup, but SAKEN picks up the first kill in this little duel. And it will be Rika dropping to Cinkrof straight afterwards. Karmine Corp, they mean business in the first 10 minutes of this game.
Well, it's all coming up, KC, right now. This solo lane's really benefiting from this one. 3-0-2 on Cinkrof. All right, I feel like we may have jinxed Akabane here with that interview, talking about how he was going to really bring it to Cinkrof and create a huge jungle diff. So far, it's working out for him, but you know what? Honestly, it's just come down to SAKEN and Cabo, I think, mostly. Like, these guys have just been so good in these skirmishes. They've had the mid-pro, they've had the pressure. Like, we'll take a look at this one as well. There's a level advantage from Rika onto SAKEN. I think that's why Big want to engage this one. But the problem is, like, firstly, Cinkrof is just huge. He has so much damage. He's so far ahead at this point. But also, Ryze's skirmishing is just purely superior. Like, you pick Galio for the team plays to move around, and he's just not as good in those situations, and you can see it as Casey's come out on top.
You did mention, though, and you can kind of see it in the CS differential now between xMatty and Keduii, is that top lane skirmish did allow Keduii to get some plates. He got 2 plates from that bot lane tower, and also has picked up a significant edge over xMatty in terms of CS. So, you know, Keduii has been the carry, really, for Big over the course of the last couple of games. I remember that Jin game that we saw in the quarterfinal was absolutely nutty. Yeah. And so Keduii still has that potential, that platform to come out on top. I just want to talk about the early games of these guys, though. There is some comparisons that we can draw between early games and also game times between Karmine Corp and Valée International Gaming. K-Corp have got an average game time of around 31 minutes, whereas you compare that to Valée International Gaming, their average game time is 26 minutes and 4 seconds. It is and by the way, this is a big deal. A 5-minute differential between average game time between these two teams. Valée International Gaming and K-Corp come out ahead at 15, but it is a 700 gold advantage to Valée International Gaming, and they have an 88% or 89% first tower rate over all of their opposition so far in the European Masters. Valée International Gaming, by all measures, are an early game team, and they use that to springboard their success. Is this going to be a problem now? Because right now, K-Corp has got this early game under control.
It is interesting because Big, as you mentioned, such a good early game team, and when they do get those leads as well, they know exactly how to close it out. And I do think, you know, that they are being put a little bit under pressure here. This is not familiar territory for these guys. They're not used to being behind early. You know, and Big, when they are ahead early, they just win, like straight up. They have not lost a single game where at 15 minutes they've had a gold lead. It's absolutely ridiculous, that kind of statistic. But I think, you know, KC definitely bring it to these guys. Not bad early game team by any means from themselves. A little bit slower, but still getting the job done. And right now in this game, in their first game in this semi-finals, it has been KC coming out on top of the skirmishing, which is something that Big is normally very, very good at. They've definitely found their match so far.
And Karmine Corp know their strengths as well. They are a team fight team, which is kind of why I expect their game times a little longer than that of Valée International Gaming. They take those fights around neutral objectives where, you know, later into the game, it becomes more important to have that kind of synergy in your team. And they just know, and they're confident that even if it goes to a little later, and don't get me wrong, 31 minutes ain't exactly like Cogmore late game. You know, it's still a point in the game where K-Corp feel confident that their team fighting is going to trump everything else that is brought to the table. What is interesting to me is that I think we kind of have to compare that to the comps that we're seeing. You know, Big are a team that likes to accelerate a game. They like to get ahead, and they like to make it difficult for their team to their enemies to kind of even get a foot in the door, right? If you can see that by a 3K gold lead at 15 minutes. The question I have is this team comp okay with going toe-to-toe at 15 minutes, or do you think that favors the K-Corp team overall?
I think when you're in this position, K-Corp are definitely in the advantage. I think one of the reasons why Big have such a good snowball power is because when they get ahead early, they have the tools to translate it across the map. But here comes seaz, here comes Galio.
Yeah, we have that Galio here. His entrance coming through. Cinkrof will flash away. Rika's looking for the taunt. Only finds it onto Cabochard, is able to eat some oranges, and yes, guess what? It is K. Able to back off. SAKEN now just gets stunned up with a hook shot immediately into the Hextech ultimatum, though SAKEN positioning, but it doesn't matter. Look at this man, machine gun Ryze comes through. There is that Galio ultimate, and everybody doubles down on top of Big. K-Corp absolutely crushed them in a death bowl.
3 for 1 in favor of the French team right there. Beautifully played, right, from K-Corp. The thing is, in this situation, Big love to do these kind of things. They moved around. They unlocked seaz from bot side. They jumped in with Rika as well. That's how they get their advantages, because they're used to being ahead at this point in the game. But you're not. KC have been winning those early skirmishes, and you can see it in their strength. the power right there that they were able to just fight back and come out on top. Like, this is just a little bit too far forward. You can see, you know, the hero's entrance coming through as well. Why you keep chasing this one though is a bit much. It's really a bit much. Melonik here jumping in with that hook shot on the backside of this play. They don't know that Targamas is there, and that's the problem. 3-man knock-up right there.
Oh, look at that.
Beautiful, beautiful stuff. And it's the Diffie right now so far. Targamas, the true jungler of KC, as he's being described, is really having the better way of things so far in this game.
That was a disgusting pulverize there. Absolutely, like, fight changing as well from Targamas. His timing and his angles are impeccable. And now K-Corp feel pretty emboldened to look for these fights around the second dragon, spawning in 10 seconds. Usually, second dragons aren't really worth fighting for, but K-Corp feel so confident in where they are in terms of item spikes, where they are in terms of teamfight potential, that they are happy to look for engages around this dragon now.
This is something as well where Big have to be cautious of. Their superstar player, Keduii, in the bot side, hasn't really been part of anything here. Just hold that thought. Rika.
Yeah, Rika actually gets caught out a little bit. Cinkrof able to jump away, though, with that hard stopper. And seaz will disengage. We're going to drop the Rift Herald in the meantime. We didn't see that go down. And Keduii finally joins the fight. Those arrows are starting to hurt, and you can see the Big are confident to push forward onto this mid lane tier 1. A fight that has actually gone relatively well for Big.
And there's no Gangplank ulti either. So that's not going to be up for this next Dragon contest if Big decide to go for it. KC, I'm not really convinced they want to go for this one. I think they've just got to let it fall. We'll see what Big decide to do. They pull it out. Yeah, it's just going to be theirs. No contest. So 2 dragons to the pocket of Big. It has been a better early game for KC. But as a consolation prize, the German squad able to pick up both those dragons. Targamas now.
Yeah, Targamas has to be a little careful here. He doesn't have anything. Oh, Keduii flashes forward. He thought he could get the kill, but he could not. And that is going to be a teleport now coming through from Karmine. Cabochard looking for the flank on that Gangplank. Look at the HP bars on Karmine Corp. It is essentially a 2 versus 4 at this point, and that is too much CC landing on Cabochard's head. A great taunt comes through. The shutdown there for Rika, and now Cinkrof is going to pay the price as the Hextech ultimatum comes through. SAKEN will drop. Hero's entrance is good enough to buy them some time, and Targamas should eventually go down to Melonik here as he gets sped up. The leg sweep finds the kill, and Big finally find an angle to win a fight.
Disastrous though for the French squad. 4 members go down for nothing in return, and there were shutdowns on both Cinkrof, Cabochard. Oh my goodness, that is just so much gold going the way of Big. Beautiful fight right there. And again, it really seems like the teams that make the proactive plays here are the ones that struggle. You know, right here, this is the start from Big, and this doesn't go their way. Keduii is not able to do enough damage against the Alistar ulti, and at this point you can see how KC think they're in an advantage where they can collapse, because Big are kind of low, but as you mentioned, because Targamas and Keduii are on like 10 health here, it's just a 2v4, and those numbers aren't good. They're not going to work for you. Just look at that, 1 by 1 by 1 by 1. So much gold right here going into the pocket of Big. I didn't see who killed Cinkrof. Did you see who got that shot down on Cinkrof?
I think it was Rika.
Okay, that's not too bad. There's a lot of gold being funneled into the solos there for Big. Very happy about that one.
And actually the gold still in favor of Karmine Corp after all of this, but it is not that bad. It's 800 now in favor, and that is a much more even gold at 15 difference that these teams are used to. Both teams used to being at least 2,000 gold in the lead when it gets to this point in the game. So we are looking at a much more even affair coming into a very important semi-final for both these teams and their regions too. We're going to see the second Rift Herald dropped here in the mid lane. Should be enough to pick up this mid lane tier 1 with a bit of help from xMatty. Might be a couple of autos away. No, it goes down easy enough, and that'll be the response for the mid lane tier 1. However, first turret did go the way, I believe, of Berlin International Gaming. So they will end up getting their first turret of the game.
That was around the bot side, where Big were able to pick up the first one. I'm not sure whether KC took top.
Yeah, they might have taken top tier 1. Oh, but the engage comes through onto Targamas. He gets stunned out of it though. Beautiful re-engage by seaz, but that'll be an Akabane dropping at the very start of the fight here. Suddenly, those possessions will come through, and that's enough to ward Big away from this fight for the time being. You can see Cinkrof though. He wants more. He wants Rika. He's going to take him down, and another possession opened up as he looks for that taunt. You can see seaz desperately walking away through his own jungle. That just went so badly wrong for Big.
The ability to pull the trigger over KC is superior. It just really is. The fact that this engage was botched as well. Like, Alistar got stunned mid-combo, so he wasn't able to catch Keduii out of position properly here. As you're going to see, the Rell stun is what knocks his combo wrong. You see that? Oh, perfectly played by seaz. But still, like, if that works out well, this would be so much better for KC, and it's already a whitewash for KC. Also, side note, disgusting champion Cinkrof is playing. Like, just rubs his team down. Like, God damn, that is just too much.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
My goodness.
I mean, we're kind of seeing what you talked about in Champion Select right here, though. If Big can't play a slightly longer form team fight, if Big can't allow Keduii to get work done before these engages happen, you just get mowed down by this machine gun comp that Karmine Corp have. This dog pile, 5v5, just drop everybody on top of the enemy, and then Ryze just kills everyone. There isn't much that Big can do if they're not allowing their Varus to get the pre-work done before these team fights open up.
It's so hard for Varus to do things in the fights if he has to right-click, because being in low range against KC's comp is just terrifying. You don't want to be close to Ryze, Cinkrof. You don't want to be close to GP. Like, it's all scary, so you're really looking to contribute further away, you know. And the fact that the rest of your team is going to be jumping forward, you know, with Camille, with Galio, with that combination, Rell jumping in as well. That's what creates space for you to be safe, to fire out those auto attacks. But when it's KC jumping into you, that doesn't work. As here they go, looking for a tower in the bot side. They're really running around the whole map here, and they're getting everything they want.
Yeah, they might be able to pick up this bot lane tier 2 at the time being. They have another minion wave crushing in. You can see that Targamas was threatening a tower dive. You see Akabane goes straight onto xMatty here. He's going to force the flash away as he jumps in, finds the sonic wave, and gets the kill. Akabane will pick up the individual 1v1 onto xMatty, who, let's be real, has had a pretty quiet game so far.
He's not had to do much at all. To be honest, both AD carries, it is not being focused around that bot side too much. Both these champs just chilling. Oh, they're not chilling. seaz.
And got the Rell Heroes entrance combo happening once more. Cinkrof just about able to get away with the red buff, do the work. It won't. They will pick up the kill on Alistar, and that will be the third dragon now up and available. Yeah. The sole point there for Big. This game is still in the balance, Foxdrop.
Whew. Good pick right there. As mentioned, you know, if Big are the ones to get that jump, then it's brilliant. If everyone on Big can run forward, they're absolutely sorted. They're in their happy place. That's where they want to be. And like you said, 3 dragons now. 3! For a team that's been losing this early game, that's quite significant. It does put a lot of pressure on this next one. KC are going to have to contest that. My premonition, my prediction is, unless like another catch happens, I wouldn't be surprised to see, you know, KC put Big focus on that dragon as they have to. And Big actually just use that and say, you know what, it's cool, we're chilling, we don't need to contest this one, and instead try and get something on the other side of the map, try and get some farm, try and get some vision top side. Because now you've got the luxury of time if you're Big, because you don't have to commit to anything right now. You want time because you're behind, and you're being given time because of the dragon positions.
The question is, though, does time benefit you more than time benefits Karmine Corp? I mean, I think that's the real question that we have to ask. You know, you're looking at a Tristana, benefits with time. You're looking at a Ryze, benefits with time. A Gangplank clearly benefits with time. So if Big are going to make that play, they have to be confident that when it comes to the mechanics of how they want to play their team fights and the mechanics of how they actually want to play the map, they think that in the late game they're going to have an edge. And I imagine that might come through Melonik split push pressure. But overall, I think it's a difficult call. I think it's a very difficult call to make.
Honestly, that's a good point. I actually don't think that Big really want this game to go on long at all. I mentioned time because they're behind right now, and so they'd like to get at least Melonik. They'd like to get Melonik's ability to really contest Cabo in the side lane. They'd like to get that up and running. But yeah, I just don't think, you know, as this game goes on, especially in 5v5s, I don't think it works out in Big's favor. But their capacity to catch people out of position and to not have a 5v5 because, you know, the baby cage with Camille plus Galio, that's where it's at, right? That's where it's got to be, and that's what they're going to be looking for those picks, looking to get people out of position. And that's why the power of vision is going to be even more useful in this game. If Big can get vision down, can spot people out, you can't make picks without knowing where people are. You've got to get that vision working on your side.
I'm really glad you mentioned that pick potential, because I was going to bring it up and explore that option more, because it has been the way that Big have been winning fights. They haven't been winning the straight up 5v5s. They've been losing those, or even the 4v4s. But when they're able to make either a Rell engage into Hero's entrance, or as you said, also lovingly put it, the baby cage, when they've been able to make those happen, that has been where Big has come through. He should be, he didn't get it. The baby cage comes through into the taunt, flash over the wall, but I don't think that's going to get you anywhere.
Look at
that.
Baron.
Will be Rika picking up the kill. They are going to go straight to Baron now. We have got the teleport from Melonik available, and that will ward Karmine Corp off. They are not able to do that quickly enough, and will get away from the Baron.
All right, just getting picks here for Big. That's all they want. Galio, Camille teaming up right there. Unfortunately for Cabo, he was in the bush, so not able to break that vision, which means Melonik was just able to point and click that ulti. Camille's ult does actually have a mini silence broken into it, so you like instantly just interrupt any channeled abilities like the teleport or something like carrying her ult, for example, if you just want to hold that one down. It's difficult to play against, honestly, and Cabo's just caught a little bit out of position right there, but that is one way that you do get Melonik back into it. But just look at the item difference, like it's
pretty insane.
Madness.
Yeah.
It's madness. 3 items on GP compared to 2, and he's just completed 2, mind you, on Melonik. It's absolutely ridiculous. Cabo is just untouchable. He's just a man on a mission.
Yeah, I'm not sure that Melonik can actually look for the 1v1s, which is why we're seeing that kind of roaming squad. And that's what Big have been doing relatively well. It has been catching individual members of Karmine Corp out of position, either through a cheeky 1v1 from Akabane, or, like we said before, seaz or Melonik setting up for Rika to come in and find these individual little picks. But the problem is, the further the game goes, the more important being able to fight full on around objectives becomes. Big might struggle to actually match Karmine Corp as this game goes on, because when things like the Soul comes up, or when things like Baron become relevant, that's where 5v5s occur. You very rarely get smaller skirmishes that happen before that, because teams are much more careful about how they set up around these objectives. And so this is where Big may end up struggling versus Karmine Corp.
This is, speaking of the objectives, this is the 4th dragon. If Big take this, it will be their soul. KC don't want to let that one go down. Big are very, very keen on contesting this one. I'm not really sure this 5v5 is going to work for them. We'll see how it plays out, because this could be the most important fight of the entire game right here. If Big win this and secure the dragon, they're sorted. If any kind of wipe goes through, Baron is also on the cards. Whew, I'm getting nervous just thinking about it. I'm not even one of the players. What's going to happen, Keenan?
They are dancing around this dragon right now. You can see that Big have got the positional advantage right now. They have the vision advantage too. They want to be set up on the objective. They want Keduii to be able to just fire those arrows out consistently from range. Every arrow that doesn't land is more time for Karmine Corp to work their way in. The Ryze flank comes through, but they're immediately going to jump on the Targamas. Keduii forced to dive away. He's by himself right now, but the hero's entrance should be able to buy time, and it's Big. Cinkrof is down, and over the wall seaz goes, but Akabane will buy some time with his stop, which is Melonik is there. This is the fight that Big wanted. They got baited in by Keduii, and the cleanup squad makes it happen. Berlin International Gaming clean house.
5 for 1. That is a good team fight right there for the Germans. They're going to take the dragon, 4th dragon of the game, which will be that Cloud Soul, and they're going to run straight to Baron afterwards as well. This early game from KC, it was superior, it was good. The skirmishes were working for them, but this team fight right now, no more skirmish was more important than this one. Putting Targamas into the backline was a decent attempt, but it just didn't work out. And look at the hero's entrance to protect Keduii. He's got so much protection. My goodness, he's got his whole squad backing him up right there. We talked about how the combination of Camille, Galio was going to be it. The aggressive combo, jumping in, flying forward. Not even. It all jumps on Keduii. They all protect their superstar AD carry. That's how they come out on top, and now it's only a 1k gold lead, but you've got the Baron, you've got the Cloud Soul. Berlin International Gaming looking very comfortable in game 1 of this best of 5.
I think also you saw one of the weaknesses of the Karmine Corp comp there. Like, once Alistar's engage had gone through, no one was able to follow up. Like Cabochard, unless he has flash, can't follow up, and he was too far away. SAKEN had already used his rift, his portal, so he couldn't follow up easily. I think Cinkrof had already used the Heartstopper as well. So, like, once Targamas made a good engage onto Keduii, no one had the legs to follow him up. He was too far removed, and as we mentioned, the wall, that that wall that was obviously like separating the blue side jungle from the river, that was like MVP work for Keduii right there, because it just prevented anybody from really getting onto Keduii through that ult from the Galio. So you can just see that unless Karmine Corp are literally on top of you, it's very difficult, I think, for them to make this 5v5 comp work.
It's the geology. That's the OP. It's the 6th member of Big. Who are the trophy mages out there?
The geology.
Very happy with that one. As they are watching this, because their McDonald's shift has probably ended at this point. As we are now moving into the big assault. Double pushing with the Baron buff. Camille not had a great time of the game, but does take towers very quickly with that empowered Q with the Sheen. Spreading KC thin right now. KC don't really have the answer, exactly as you mentioned as well. The engage from KC is weak. It's not good, straight up. And this makes it very hard to break a siege or catch people out of position. They're just going to have to sit there and watch their base die.
Yeah, Targamas only with the Hex Splash right now. No walls to kind of Hex Splash over either. Makes it very difficult for him to really look for a surprise engage onto Karmine Corp. Sorry, onto Berlin International Gaming. You can see Melonik jumps in, just chipping away at this turret. They don't want to commit too hard, and the siege potential from Big is good. That will be Targamas looking for it there. Will be the Gangplank ultimate, but again, no one willing to follow up. And they will happily back out with another tower here. SAKEN taken incredibly low. And that might just be another inhibitor here for Berlin International Gaming. Karmine Corp look down and out after this Baron power play. And that'll be 2 inhibitors. Berlin International Gaming will walk away very happy with the outcome.
It's very hard to walk into Big at this point because you've got the Winds of War, you've got Keduii throwing things your way as well. So much damage coming through that you don't really have someone on KC that wants to run forward and tank that. Unless it's Alistar, but he only wants to do it with his ultimate up. And obviously he wants to save his ultimate for the commit, for the fight. You can't have people just walking up and knocking on Big's front door because they're not going to have it. The problem is right now for KC is like you have to be able to pull that trigger, you have to be able to find that fight. We've got 2 minutes left until the Elder Dragon, excuse me. And that's going to be another important fight. And of course, if the Soul wasn't an important enough fight, which KC lost pretty handedly, this one's going to be even more important, and it's going to be even harder to win now that Big have that significant team fighting lead. We'll see how this one ends up. Oh,
and that is a good catch for Akabane. He will be able to flash away, though. I liked what Karmine Corp were trying to do. We do have the Elder spawning in 1 minute and 40 seconds, and that is a lot of pressure being naturally created on the side of the map that is furthest away from this objective as well, with that top lane inhibitor down and that mid lane inhibitor down, creating natural mid lane priority. You'd think the Big are best placed to do well off the back of this Elder Dragon fight. They really have the map in their favor when setting up for this objective.
It's a brilliant point. If you do have inhib down top, inhib down mids, then those minion waves are going to be pushing in really, really fast. You know what, Keduii, we're starting to fight here from KC.
I mean, Melonik, he's going aggressive, the hook shot out as well, baiting Karmine Corp to come in, but that is a big, big tool down now for Karmine Corp, especially with 1 minute until the Elder. They don't care, they're going in straight onto xMatty as the Hextech ultimation comes through. That'll be the hero's entrance as well. A split fight, but Keduii is on a rampage, can't find the kill. Cinkrof kites back, Keduii still alive on 5% HP, and Karmine Corp are getting cleaned up. Berlin International Gaming had their number, and they will absolutely finish the one out with style. A clean ace, low HP bars across the board, but it doesn't matter because they are going to get the win.
Berlin International Gaming, they're going to take game 1 of this series in a fashion that they're not used to. They weren't ahead in the early game. It was KC who had that early part of the game. And look at this, it's still the Germans coming out on top.
Absolutely unbelievable performance from Berlin International Gaming. It really looked like Karmine Corp had their number in the part of the game that Big have always been strongest. Karmine Corp had their number, but when it came to the mechanics of how these team fights played out, when it came to managing the range especially and peeling back and kiting back, they played it excellently. It was a beautiful, beautiful game from Berlin International Gaming, and you know, maybe Trouble was on the nail on the head. They might just have the edge coming into the defending European Masters champions.
Yeah, it's legit. It's kind of terrifying, actually, with the way that they played that one out. Their team fighting in general was just perfect. Like, once we were out of the early game and the skirmishes that were in favor of KC, like the actual team fighting was genuinely sublime. And that was the difference, and I think that will be the difference for the rest of the series, will be who can team fight better. And for now, it's advantage big. Really impressed with the way they did that.
Yeah, I really am. And I think going into the next game, we've got a lot to talk about. I'm sure the analyst desk are going to be keen to dissect that game a little further. But for the time being, we're going to do a quick break. When we are back, expect all the action in a very explosive semi-final.
And welcome back to the desk. That's a big showing for the Prime League team here in game one. And I gotta say, that was the bloody game I was looking for, guys.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like there's a lot of unorthodox things that happened.
Yeah.
It felt like Cinkrof transformed into Akabane, Targamas was the second jungler right there, and then Karmine Corp was playing like big in the early game. It was so bloody.
Yeah. I just think it was crazy, the fact that Karmine Corp came in with a huge lead, with a composition that served them well in the late game. We praised their team fighting, but Big just, one, they kept finding opportunities to get picks, but also when it came to the team fights, they were just better.
Yeah, you touched on an interesting point here with the draft, because we talked about this before the games, and here it is like, it was everything we expected from both teams, if we can talk about the draft daddies that we talk about, because that is exactly the picks you want to see for each team.
Yeah, and we have to also like elaborate what we mean by draft daddies. We mean like the main key point, the daddies, if you will, of each draft. So I felt like this shows us what Karmine want to do. We showed it in the pre-show as well. They have the Gangplank in the top lane, who wants to create space for team fights later on. They've got the Alistar and the Tristana and the rest of the team for these team fights, Ryze creating all these pressure points. And then on the other side, if you look at Big, same core top three. You've got Global in mid, Lee Sin, Camille for the playmaking in the top, and a more laid-back bot lane for them. But it felt like Karmine came in completely fired up, and they were finding the skirmishes. And I think this also has to do with, like, I felt like Cinkrof was like a completely different monster in the early game.
Yeah, and there was an interesting decision, because Akabane, he chose to path towards the top side, despite the fact he didn't have priority there. So instead of pathing towards his bot lane, which we saw had the push constantly throughout the early game, he went over that side. He doesn't have support from his top laner. He actually didn't have prior from his mid laner, and we saw Cinkrof able to invade, challenge him and force him off, steal the red, and buy a lot of time. And it's just, that's what we expected Akabane to do, especially after the interview saying how he was going to steal away camps. But I think he made that decision to try and combat Cinkrof, wanted to match him, but it just ended up putting him behind, and he still remained relevant later in the game, but it was definitely a misstep.
Yeah, and when we saw afterwards, I mean, the second man in the jungle for Corp, Targamas, minute 5 already roaming top lane.
Hey, if you can't 1v1 him, bring a friend over. We mentioned how Targamas works as always the second jungler alongside Cinkrof in this team, and I felt like that cow was everywhere in the map. I felt like Targamas was a big reason why Corp was able to win the skirmishes. He was the first one to roam top, the win that top lane fight right there, and I felt like from there on out, because Cinkrof was so fed, he was able to snowball that on the rest of the map.
Yeah, and it gave them the confidence to go further. I mean, with the replay we're watching right now, but it feels like Corp was a bit hasty on that, which gave the upper hand on this fight.
It felt like we're hyping Corp so much about their team fighting, but we're forgetting what Big are also really good at, which is also team fighting. This is why at the start of the pre-show I was like, I feel like Big is the better team here because they play a faster paced early game and they're equally, if not better, as good at team fighting. And I felt like, oh my god, I'm watching team fights, I'm watching Keduii play, and I'm like,
yeah,
Sevski's everywhere.
We have to give it to him, honestly. We talked about him during the pre-show, and he's the man for Big. But I didn't expect him to show up so early in the game, but I mean, with Varus, it can be expected.
Absolutely, and he was taking more of like a laid-back approach because he was playing the Varus, like you mentioned. But when it came to these team fights, no one was allowed to touch him. And yes, he had a lot of protection with the Camille, the Galio, the Lee Sin, but his positioning was just so beautiful to watch.
He was enabled by his teammates also, but for more on that, let's send it over to Dan.
Yeah, so the critical thing I really want to talk about is the sort of support roaming that we've seen throughout. And the big thing with support roaming is you sort of play around it like borrowed time. It's really critical to think of it that way. When you want to move away from the bot lane, if you're not there to support your AD, then obviously they're going to be left in a position where if you're not there to support your AD, they're not going to be able to farm as easily, and also it gives you the opportunity to move. So the clip starts off, and we see Big have priority bot lane. They're able to move up towards the top side of the map, and you can look, it's quite obvious on the mini-map that the focus is going to be towards this Herald. And we do see that he's being followed here by Targamas, but because he's so far behind, because he doesn't have priority, then obviously they're not able to really contribute anything, and then we just end up seeing a situation where the Herald's secured by the side of Big, and Targamas essentially just wanders up for nothing. And this is where we see the advantage of Big. This is a critical element, is Big are pulling ahead at this point of the game. But the misstep comes a little bit later on, because at this point, Targamas resets, and he heads down towards the bot side. You see Keduii once again looking to pick a priority, and this is going to open up another window where seaz can roam up towards the top side, and critically where they can bring Keduii as well. The mistake they make here, though, is it's borrowed time, right? This is an opportunity where you can move up, but because Tristana is safe to farm in this situation, Targamas is able to follow as well. And the play that Big end up going for is a pretty slow pace on. And this is where the critical mistake comes, where we saw Corp pull ahead. You see seaz, he's very confident, he's moving forwards, he's like, I can play aggressive. They go for that initial play, but then they end up overstepping. And the thing that I want to highlight is if you look at the minimap, because of that priority in the bot lane, we actually see that Varus moved all the way up to the top side. So Tristana's farming, doing her own thing. Varus has moved, but he goes, okay, my time's up. I now need to go bot to collect the wave. And if you look on the map, you can see, you know, Big are not like our time is up. They're still engaging here on this side. So when we play on, we see the fight initially start with an engage on them, but this is where Targamas has the opportunity to turn up, and because that Varus isn't there, it ends up being an even numbers fight, but the overcommit from Big ends up biting them back. And so I think seaz actually did a pretty good job with roaming, but you have to think about the concept of borrowed time. If you're gonna go for a play, bring your support up, it has to be quick. If you want to bring your AD carry again, he's tied to the wave's bot, and he needs to move down, and I think Big overstepped there, and that's why we saw them fall so far behind in the early game.
On the side of K-Corp, but as we said, I mean, Big maybe trying a bit too hard.
I'm so happy you mentioned that, because I felt like that play was indeed overforced by Big. I felt like they saw K-Corp coming in so hot in the early game, and they're like, we need to make the plays right now before these guys scale, before their team fighting comes online, and we don't have a reply to that. And I felt like overforcing this double-edged sword before that fight that was highlighted even happened. They had used all their crucial ultimates. The Galio ultimate had gone down, the Rell ultimate had gone down, and the only thing that they had left was Camille. And then when they overextended, if seaz is there, you should expect that Targamas is going to be following around, because Targamas is usually the first one in the play, so he must be around. So yeah, these are the things that Big, I think, need to be cautious of, not falling into the trap of having to necessarily be aggressive at a particular point.
Yeah, but they still have the edge here in Game 1. K-Corp choose red for Game 2. We'll see if they can come back in Game 2 for the EU Masters semifinals. See you then.